What's going on, Lee Tribe, and anyone else new to the channel? My name is Lisa, and today's video is more or less a follow-up of the last video where I shared with you guys my first month and a half on KDP. I just wanted to give you an update. So I think the last video I recorded on the 1st, if I'm not mistaken, of February. And so you can see what I've done since then. Most of these sales are organic and my profit margins are getting better because I'm lowering the cost of my bids a little bit. So that's a good thing. So I'm recording this on the morning of February 14th. You can see here's the 14th. And, I'm pleased with this, but let me explain to you why I haven't uploaded any more books since early or mid-January. I'm approaching KDP and earning online in general in a much different way than I have all these years. I've changed my mentality, my approach. In the past, I've always relied on, just putting out stuff and relying on organic traffic. And I've done very well with that. No complaints. The problem was, though, a copycat will come along and the design or product might not even be any better, but they'll learn how to run ads or master ads and they'll sell more just because they know ads. And so I thought when I started learning KDP, I thought, you know what? Imagine if I can do what I'm good at and come out with unique products, but then spend money on ads and get way ahead of the competition before people realize, oh, this idea is selling. So my strength online has always been that part. I understand how to sell in different niches, but scaling over time has been where I'm weak. And so that's what I want to master, because once you master that, you can kill it anywhere. And also, if you didn't watch my last video where I shared my earnings, make sure you go to about 10.5 minutes in, because that's where I share my research strategy. You guys, that's the same strategy I use for Merch by Amazon, for print on demand in general. Once you master the concept of how to sell, you can replicate that across different platforms. And I do think that selling on POD helped me with KDP because I understand the process of niching down. So once you can get good at that, you sell anywhere. And that's exactly why I want to master advertising, because what I'm learning with KDP, I'm also taking that to Merch by Amazon. I have already earned in February for Merch by Amazon, half of the month is over. I've already matched what I did for the entire month last February. I'm really trying to learn how to get better at converting and scaling what I do make. Now, let's talk about making your content for KDP, your books. There are 43,700 videos on how to create KDP books in Canva. I am not interested in being the 43,700 first. And it's not because Canva is not a great way to make books. Honestly, for most of you, that's what you're going to want to do. So there are tons of videos out there that teach that very well. What I want to focus on is teaching you how to use what you already have on your computer, because I believe you'll have more access to more tools, even though Canva's great. And I don't even have the pro version. I can imagine the pro version is even better. And by the way, I want to shout out my girl, Kim George, because if you do want to learn Canva, I think she's a very, very underrated YouTuber. She's been doing Canva for a long time and KDP much longer than me. So if you want to learn how to create things for your KDP content, check out her channel, please. Very, very underrated. And she's such a cool person. I actually got to meet her in person a couple years back. Just a cool person all the way around. So let's talk about what I used for my first two books. I created my first coloring book and my first log book in Pages. So Pages is just Mac's word processing program. It comes with a Mac for free, very similar to Word for Windows. So if you don't have a Mac, don't panic. You're going to be able to apply this to whatever you use. You can use any program to create your KDP content as long as you can save it as a PDF and you can set your template size. So if you're creating a coloring book that's 8.5 by 11, just make sure that your program allows you to open up a template that's 8.5 by 11 and you can save it as a PDF. So that means you can use Pages, Word, PowerPoint, Keynote, Affinity Designer, Illustrator. You can use anything that you want. It's really about what you're comfortable with. Amazon already has a great help section for KDP, and they tell you what to set your margins to based on the number of pages that you're going to have in your book. And so what I did when I was learning is I just came down here and I was like, oh, they've got a page for people that are using Pages for Mac. So I clicked that. And as you saw, they had one for Windows and Word. And they literally walk you through setting up your template for your book. So what you're doing here is you're setting up a preset template. So if you create another book of that same size, you already have your template ready to go. So for example, you'll come up here to File, Page Setup, and then choose Manage Custom Size, and then come down here to your plus, and you can title it whatever you want. I would title it, what the size of your book is. So 6x9, no bleed, or something like that. And then you set your size, and this is going to be whatever the size of your book is, and your margins according to what Amazon has on their KDP help section. And you save that, and now you can reuse this template over and over again. So now to create your book, you would just create it like you would any other book. So if you want to add a table, here's a table where you can add rows and columns. You can write in your table. So if you're creating a log book or a chart for diabetics to track their blood sugar, boom, there's your chart. And then all you do is save this as a PDF. It's that simple. So with coloring books, where did I get my images? I use a service called VectEasy. And I've actually been using VectEasy for about 3 years. I used them originally for Redbubble. When I was doing patterns, I didn't really know how to create patterns myself years ago. So I was like, there's got to be a service out here where I can just download some commercial rights or whatever. Sure enough, VectEasy, $9 a month. I pay by the year. I'm able to do that. But then I started creating my own patterns myself in Illustrator. And so I canceled VectEasy. But when I started learning KDP back in December, I was like, ooh, I think I need to reactivate my subscription because I can use them for my coloring books. So that's exactly what I used for my first coloring book. So you can pretty much search for whatever you're looking for. And as you can see, some of the images will already be line art. Now, I will caution you, anytime you use a service like this, you will always run the risk that there might be someone else that has used that same image. Absolutely. That's why I try to combine my images together. I might add backgrounds to my image, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But this is exactly why, and I know some of you are watching this thinking, you don't have to use VectEasy. There are cheaper ways to get images out here. Oh, I'm sure there are. And by the way, I am an affiliate for VectEasy, and the link is in the description, just FYI. But yes, I'm sure there are less expensive ways to get images online. But the reason I don't mind paying for premium services is I always notice that I don't see these images everywhere. Like, with Pixabay, for example, or even if you buy low cost images on Etsy, a lot of times those images are stolen. Whereas with VectEasy, and I know iStock, not that you would use iStock, this is very expensive, but what I like about these services is I talk to the people at iStock. They actually use software to ensure that the designs that the designers upload are not like all over the internet. So they vet the images before they allow them in their database. Now, I don't know if VectEasy does the same thing, but all I will say that as a person that's used VectEasy for a few years, I just don't see my stuff everywhere like I do with Pixabay images and things of that nature. So do your research, use what you feel is best for you. I use VectEasy. So once I find something on VectEasy, I will open it up in Illustrator to turn it into a coloring book line art page or whatever. So somebody can actually color it in, because obviously it's already colored in. Now, if you don't have a program to do this, some services, I know VectEasy does, they actually sell coloring book art. Like, you can just download this and use this for your coloring book as is. The reason I personally don't prefer to do that is I'm always trying to create something that's unique, because there might be other people that are also using this same art. So I will combine my images or add different backgrounds to my images. I don't just take them as is typically off this site just because I'm concerned about them being unique, but you can do that if you don't want to do what I'm going to do. And I think there are also tools online that will allow you to do this as well. So if anybody knows of a great tool, put it down in the comments, because I don't expect people to get Illustrator. You don't need it. The only reason I'm using it is because I already know how to use it. I've been using it for print on demand. So what I do is I open up the EPS file, and you can open up EPS files in Inkscape, Affinity Designer, Photoshop, Illustrator, any program that accepts EPS files, you can do this in. And I would imagine the process is going to be very similar. So the first thing that I do is I need to clean up this image. I don't want this gray bar here. It doesn't really add to the image for a coloring book. So I would just click it and hit delete. So you notice how he has this little white highlight here over his nose or on his nose. So I'm going to delete that. And also he's got this shadow. I'm going to show you what that looks like when I turn this into a coloring page. So after I clean this up, I just select it, and now I'm going to change the fill color to white. And then I'm going to change the stroke to black, and I'm just going to increase the stroke size. And just like that, it's ready to color. I mean, it doesn't get any simpler than that. And see what I was talking about? So I would come in here, hit the A key on my keyboard, which is the direct selection tool, click, delete. Same thing for this thing here. So I would typically clean up anything that I need to. And I will also sometimes add like my own backgrounds because I've already created patterns in Illustrator for print on demand. So I might reuse some of those patterns. I also buy patterns from Creative Fabrica. So I might have, flowers in the background or just something that makes sense for that image. Again, the advantage of using a program you already know how to use, because you're not fumbling around trying to figure out how to do everything. Once I'm done with that, now I do everything in Illustrator. So I would just stay here and save it as a PDF. But let's say I was using Canva or Pages or something like that. I could copy this after I clean it up and just paste it right into Pages. Or paste it right into Canva, whatever program that you're using, file, save as a PDF, rinse and repeat for your other images, and you're good to go. And so for something like this, when there's not a lot of, content, I would have probably a pattern background from Creative Fabrica or something like that to fill up the page. So as I was saying, now I create all of my books in Illustrator. Why not? I'm already doing the line art work in there. So the reason I like Illustrator and Affinity Designer, which is a much more economical option, you can probably do this as well. But you see how I have all this real estate around my document, around the canvas? So I like it because I can work over here on the side. And if I go, oh, I really like that. Nah, I don't like that. Let me delete it. Let me try something else. Let me do a rectangle instead and see what that looks like or whatever. So I can work out in the margins instead of my template. And then I can just click and say, hey, I want to move this page to page 4. I can just move my content all the way over. But I like that I can see my entire book on the screen. So if I have 50 pages, I can see, you can't see it here because I'm on a smaller resolution for recording, but this is a larger screen. I mean, it's a 27-inch screen. So I have a lot of real estate to work in the margins. And so it's just very handy to work this way for me rather than having to scroll down to each page to see my entire book. So as you can see, this is a text example. If you're doing a text coloring book, this background is from Creative Fabrica. I got like a bundle for like 50 cents or something like that. For the text, I already know how to do 3D text in Illustrator, so I just use the 3D effect tool, which is something I already use on my shirts. So again, using programs that you're already comfortable with will save you time from learning another program. And so if you know Affinity Designer, why not use it for your coloring books? As long as you can save as a PDF. And when it comes to setting up your template, it's very similar to Pages. You go to File, New, choose your page size or your book size, 8.5 by 11, set your top, bottom, left, right margins, bleed, whatever. And that's your template. And then you reuse that for your next coloring book. So then you just save it as a PDF when you're done and upload it to Amazon. So you can make journals. So if you want to do a journal, you would use your rectangle tool and just draw a box. And then you can hold down Option or Alt if you're on Windows and drag that and create another box below it for another blank. It's so easy to use what you already have. So as you can see, if you know how to make shapes and lines, you can do a journal, you can do a log book, you can do a coloring book. As long as you have a place to get your images, you can paste them right into here. And this is my process. Save it as a PDF and go. I just want to emphasize, this is not about me saying you got to use Illustrator. No. Most beginners or even intermediates are not going to want to pay that. I get that. But there's so many options out there. So use what you're comfortable with. So that's my process, you guys. Let me know if you have any questions and I'll talk to you in the next video.